Hey everyone, this is the CFB Guru Week 1 analysis of college football. And obviously there's a lot to talk about for this week and everything that went down. Start off with the Houston Cougars. I mean, they had an impressive win over Oklahoma yesterday with the final score of 33-23. I mean, do you think they have any shot at the playoff at this point?
Well, I think they have a good shot, but don't expect them if they just keep winning like conference games because they're not in the best conference. So they gotta pull out good wins and not barely getting past some of their conference teams.
Well, yeah, they're definitely going to need some help from other teams around the around different Power 5 conferences like the Big 12. I mean, if Oklahoma ends up emerging from the Big 12 with only their only loss being to Houston, that looks really good on the resume that they beat the Big 12 champion. Because I mean, if you look at it that way, if a 12-0 Houston team versus an 11-1 Oklahoma team, I mean, you'd feel like you'd have to put in you've had to put in Houston because
I think Greg Ward Jr. He has to step up and be the leader of that team if they want to get into the playoffs or have a good shot at the championship. He's got to step up and be a good quarterback, be a threat, like Marcus Mariota was, Cam Newton, those kind of players.
Well, do you think that we should pay more attention to these type of group of 5 teams that kind of emerge year after year? I mean, for a long time we saw Boise State, and then in 2013 we saw UCF crushing Baylor in the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, the past 2 years it seems like it's been Houston, and now that we have the playoff, it seems like there's room for a group of 5 teams to make it. I mean, if 2000 I forget what year it was, but Boise State was number 3 and they ended up beating Oklahoma in one of the bowl games. They would have made the playoff if it had existed in that day. But with the BCS rules and everything, they weren't able to get in there. So
I think we do have to pay more attention to those teams, but not too much to where we are trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I just think that if Houston can get a decent amount of help from other conferences, and there should be a couple 2-loss conferences like Pac-12 doesn't look like they have a legitimate playoff contender, maybe Stanford, but Pac-12 finishes with 2 losses, and if Oklahoma ends up winning the Big 12, and then also Houston goes undefeated, I think they have a legitimate shot to get in.
And while we're talking about Houston, I want to talk about Tom Herman, the way he stepped in last year.
Oh, for sure.
Led that team to only lose 1 game, which was a bowl game. That's just insane. Whoever hired Tom Herman is probably loving themselves right now.
So, yeah, speaking of the Big 12 and everything, at this point, who do you think is going to win the conference? I mean, you see Oklahoma gets beat yesterday. TCU has some trouble handling. They have trouble handling, South Dakota State. And then Baylor, I mean, with all their offseason troubles, I mean, it doesn't seem like they have a standout team to win the Big 12 anymore like they used to.
Yeah, TCU, we did see them struggle. Baylor, after losing their head coach, they still might have a shot, but I don't think so because it's hard to get a first-year coach and win it like that.
It would be a good job by Jim Grove, though. I mean, step into that kind of environment and to lead that team. I don't count Baylor out of the Big 12 title hopes. I still think that they have a legitimate shot of winning the Big 12 along with TCU and Oklahoma. Maybe Oklahoma State's in that conversation too, but I think those are the 4 teams that have a chance. Now, I don't think at this point that the winner will have less than 2 losses. I think that Oklahoma will either lose to Ohio State in a few weeks or they'll lose to either TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State down the road. Oklahoma's still my pick to win the Big 12, but I don't think it'll be, I don't think they'll have less than 2 losses.
If Ohio State beats Oklahoma, I think the Big 12 is automatically out of the playoff.
I don't think so. Maybe TCU or Baylor can, step up their game a little bit.
But that would also be a great win for the Big 10, knock out a Big 12 team that's projected to get into the playoff.
Speaking of a Big 10 team stepping up, Wisconsin yesterday took down the mighty LSU Tigers.
That was a great game to watch, I'll tell you that much.
Do you think that Wisconsin's overlooked or that LSU just had a really bad game?
I think it was both. I think LSU didn't play very good, but...
Well, no, they didn't.
I think Wisconsin played really good. People underestimate their defense. They have always had a great defense.
For sure.
I mean, J.J. Watt came out of there. So-
T.J. Watt, his brother, had a great game yesterday, and so did Corey Clement, their running back. I think he probably will be one of the best Big Ten backs this year. Last year he had some injury issues, but I think this year he's gonna have a great year. And the new quarterback, Bart Houston, I mean, he had a couple of bad plays, but overall he stepped up when he needed to, and he got the job done. So we'll see how he progresses as the year goes on. Do you think that they have a shot of winning the Big Ten West? I mean, it seems like
maybe the Big Ten West, but no, I don't think so at all because Michigan is looking to be great this year. Ohio State.
Well, they're in the East, but if
Michigan
you look at
State.
Well, if you look at the West, I mean, you got teams like Nebraska, Wisconsin, and I honestly thought Northwestern has a shot, but after their loss yesterday, I don't think Northwestern has a shot anymore. And then Iowa, and right now Iowa is my pick to win the Big Ten West, but you never know. Wisconsin could beat them, and that obviously that LSU non-conference win looks a lot better on their resume, but we'll see how everything pans out in the West.
I'll have to go over to the SEC. They didn't really perform well week 1. I mean, Alabama hammered USC, but
I
that
think
was basically the only impressive win by the SEC.
I mean, I don't even think that we look at SEC as a super conference anymore. I think it's kind of like how the Big Ten was for a lot. Over the past few years, I think that Alabama is just so much separated from the rest of the SEC now. I mean, you look at Alabama and look who's under them. I mean, Auburn hasn't played well in recent years. Texas A&M and Mississippi State are on the downside. Mississippi State just got beat by an FCS team yesterday, which was terrible.
What a crazy ending.
That was terrible. If you're an SEC fan, and they finished with a record of 7-6. Now, granted, they played a tougher schedule, week 1 schedule than most conferences did, but you'd figure some of those teams could have played better. Even Tennessee, they barely beat Appalachian State, who's actually up by 10 at one point in the game, and
that was a bad performance by Tennessee. They left away a win, I think.
And you look at the mighty SEC West now with Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and really right now I think after LSU's loss, I feel like the only contenders right now are Alabama and Ole Miss. I just don't think LSU will be able to win their games win these types of games without a quarterback. And Brandon Harris is taking so much heat, and I feel bad for him. But I mean, for the amount of talent that LSU has, they just don't have a quarterback, and that'll haunt them, and it's been haunting them for recent years.
Yeah. About the SEC yesterday, the Alabama versus USC game. I knew Alabama was good, but that was a very good performance.
Yeah, I think that just
Crimson Tide.
definitely proved how it seems invincible Alabama is, and I think they're going to be better than last year, which is crazy because they lost a lot of people. But Alabama, look out for them. I absolutely despise Alabama being an Ohio State fan. But Alabama, they look really good, and I think they're going to be a great team this year.
Yeah.
And now you look at Alabama's most likely to come out of that SEC West, but you go in the East. A lot of people had Tennessee as a preseason favorite. Maybe the Appalachian State game was it was kind of like a first game blues. Maybe they'll pick it up a little bit, but maybe if they are overhyped, who do you see coming out of the East?
I don't really know at this point. Coming from week 1, what do you think?
Georgia looked really good yesterday against North Carolina. Kirby Smart seems to know what he's doing. They seem to have found a quarterback in Jacob Eason. When they were down late in third, he came in and kind of took control of that game, and ultimately Georgia came away with a win. And Nick Chubb he's back again, and he looks great.
Huge for Georgia.
So right now, I would say I had Tennessee, and this is really early, but I had Tennessee as of last week. I would have had Tennessee, but as of right now, I think Georgia they're going to come out of the East.
Yeah. So Clemson yesterday, they didn't play as good as people had hoped.
Well, they were kind of the opposite of how Bama played.
Yeah.
You want to say maybe week 1 Blues kind of like Tennessee, but they've had such high expectations. Their expectations are probably even higher than Ohio State's were last year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what are the reasons for sluggish start? Was it,
I don't know. I think Deshaun Watson is still kind of upset about losing.
You think?
But I don't know.
I would say it's more motivation.
It was weird.
And maybe Clemson played good. Is Auburn actually better than everyone expects him to be? Is that a possibility?
I don't know. Maybe from the start, is it Clemson that played bad or Auburn that played good, or but once we get farther into the season, I think we'll be able to determine which one it was.
Yeah, and I think that Clemson obviously. I don't think they're going to be punished in the rankings for their performance. I mean, Auburn's still their Power 5 opponent. Their Power 5 opponent. They're in the SEC. I mean, they get good recruits year in, year out. But if Auburn can just mold themselves and use all that talent, I mean, I think they're capable of having a good year. Like I said, don't think they'll come close to beating Alabama, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
That's all for this week's analysis, and we'll see you next week for the Week 2 analysis. Also, don't forget to watch the Ole Miss Florida State game on Monday. That's bound to be a good game. See ya.